Hello, everyone. Welcome to this learning session for the Data to Insight Corndel Data Analyst Level 4 Apprenticeship for Children's Services. We will shortly be joined by Lauren Jones, who's going to talk us through, from Corndel's point of view, all the details of the course. I just wanted to start with an introduction about Data to Insight and why I think it matters that we're doing this thing. So where this course came from was about 2020, a lot of conversation around the children's services performance networks about skills in their sector and the frustration of not being able to bring in people with the skills they needed all the time. More importantly, not having the opportunities for their existing staff to develop those staff and kind of get skills into their teams. And so we started a long kind of user research piece with all of those kinds of people and then analysts who might be interested in learning to figure out how could we address that best. And we know with two answers. And one was that some of the stuff that Data to Insight does should be more kind of inclusive of analysts and have opportunities for people to learn by doing, as well as us just building things for people to use. We're working on that through a couple of our projects at the moment. And the other was some kind of formal learning opportunity. And the thing we arrived at was an apprenticeship. So we gathered together details of all the things that we thought an apprenticeship should teach in this sector, all the reasons that we couldn't get it at the moment. And the biggest of those was that when you go for an apprenticeship at the moment, then as an individual local authority, you just don't have enough candidates from children's services to justify any provider tailoring their course to your needs. And so you'd go on the apprenticeship and you'd be dealing with, bike sales data or marketing metrics or whatever else it might be, and then struggling to figure out, how do I apply this to my work? Through Data to Insight and that community that's built up through the regional performance groups, we had an opportunity to say, we can deliver the economies of scale to a provider that makes it worth them tailoring their course. And so we went out to an open tender, and the successful partner was Corndel. We've been working with Corndel for coming up on 2 years now. I think this is our fourth cohort. And in that time, we've kind of iterated and learned on that as it's gone to kind of refine the courses as we've changed it over time. So more recent cohorts have brought in things like expert speakers from our sector, from different councils, talking about different bits of data analysis in councils, or kind of wider scope data sets, or more tailoring of the questions to make them more relevant to you. And so every time that someone's kind of rolled their eyes in one of the learner sessions about this isn't the kind of question you would ask, we tried to take that feedback and go back to the drawing board and say, okay, this question didn't resonate with people, so how do we change it, make it more relevant? What is the kind of thing you would really be forecasting in a children's services department? What's actually interesting? What are the skills and tools we'd need to do that? And that's been working really well for us from Data to Insight's point of view. I think there's been about 90 people have enrolled to date. So this fourth cohort will be hoping to tip the 100 mark at least. And the real mission of it is kind of, it's two things at once. One of them is to deal with that challenge of just having something available in terms of formal training for someone in a data team in children's services or related disciplines. And that training course exists and it works, and that's great. And then the other thing that we really want to do with this is kind of define what skills we think we should have in the sector and kind of really seed that in teams. So when we start looking at more advanced analytical concepts that would be pushing us out of our comfort zones and kind of out of the realms of what we can do with things like your Excels or your Power BIs or whatever else, then we tried to pick technologies and tools that we think are the kind of the benchmark or the baseline for how a council should be working in the future. And our kind of aspiration with that is that you take those skills out of the apprenticeship into your teams, find ways to work that are more efficient, and then the people in your team that maybe don't have the time to dedicate to the apprenticeship see what you're doing, learn the necessary skills to make that work, and then the learning spreads even further within the teams. And then beyond that, we start advertising jobs where we can say we're working with these kind of approaches, principles, technologies, and the bright young things that are coming out of university or graduate programs looking for the next analytical role can see jobs in local government working with children's services where they'll be able to use the kind of skills and techniques that they've learned on that stuff as well. And so the sector as a whole moves forward through us kind of putting more of this knowledge in that I think for a long time we've known there's other things we could be doing. We've not known how to get started. So this apprenticeship is really the way to get started and say, okay, I'm going to come out of this able to do this kind of work, and I'm going to be able to kind of do things that weren't happening in my team, and the rest of the team is going to be interested in that. The sector as a whole will move on, and it'll make us better at keeping children safe ultimately. There's two other bits that I normally talk about in this session. One is about data to insight generally. I'll thank you for my advertising slide, whoever's controlling the slides, that's brilliant. Last year, we won a thing called Data for Good Initiative of the Year. That was in recognition of this kind of stuff, but also just the general approach that D2I takes to work of there are some things that local authorities have to do locally, and we always need skilled analysts to do them. There are other things which are more data production or processing or getting you to where you need to be to begin your analysis that we could be working together on. And what Data to Insight does generally is make those opportunities happen and find people in councils who are interested in similar questions. So instead of having to work in a bubble, they can then find like-minded people in other councils to work together on those projects and really kind of push things further than they'd be able to do as a single council. The benefits of that in terms of thinking about this apprenticeship are that not only is the apprenticeship tailored through our kind of understanding of what data is available and what kind of questions you might want to ask of it. So when you're learning regression analysis later in the course, then you're looking at an interesting question about child protection data that you might then be able to take back and point at your local data and do something interesting with. But we have this kind of community existing. So that kind of gives you that network of support people that are in the same role as you, understand the same kind of problems as you, and can give you advice on that, and you can help them. And as a community, we then start to solve some of these problems. It's great, the different communities that have grown up around open source tools, around Power BI, around Excel on the wider internet. What D2I has that they don't often have is that focus and that understanding of the kind of problem you're actually trying to solve. That changes the kind of stuff we teach on the apprenticeship. It changes the kind of conversation that happens through Data to Insight and similar networks. And my real big aspiration for this apprenticeship is that people on it talk to each other outside of the apprenticeship as well. And they start to kind of build those networks in the ways that I've been lucky to do, I think, in the past, because there was nothing formal there to kind of kickstart it. You start to build those networks around the country of people who you can come to when you need to ask a question, and you'll get a sensible answer. A bit scattered, but hopefully that gives an idea of where this came from, what I think is interesting about the learning, and the kind of wider mission of D2I that I hope, whether or not you join the apprenticeship, then you're interested in kind of joining in with that and linking into the kind of community that we've got started here. That's it from me, I think. So I will pass over to Lauren to talk about the Corndel apprenticeship in some more detail.
Thank you, Alistair. That was a really great introduction just around the programme and what to expect. But I'll just introduce myself. My name is Lauren Jones. I'm one of the account directors at Corndel. So I'm responsible for managing the implementation of this programme. Alongside myself, we've got Dominic. So Dominic has actually is one of our professional development experts, and he has facilitated and delivered these courses to existing cohorts and previous cohorts. So we will be talking to you a bit about the programme, what to expect, how it's been delivered, and then just give you an overview of, I guess, more insight around, the assessment and if this is the right programme for you. This is not just a standard data analytics program. It's not just a standard Corndel program. We tailor it for those who it's best repurposed for those who are doing the data analyst within the children's services roles. So in terms of the workshops and the data sets used, everything is really tailored. Alice has mentioned that we've got guest speakers that will be invited to come along and attend those workshops from various different local authorities. And that's really to set the landscape and conceptualize some of these techniques that you'll be learning, these capabilities that you'll be developing within your specific role. And then you'll also, other ways that the program's been tailored is, which I'll talk to you about in a second, is you'll be required to do some portfolio work, which is really building your portfolio with some data analytics projects. And that is all specifically aligned to your individual roles within your day-to-day roles. So that's all, again, how we've developed that tailoring. And then networking. So I loved what Alistair said about, this isn't just a course around being able to learn independently, gain some capabilities. We do want you to network with other people on the program, other people from local authorities, so that you can build up that network of people who work in a similar industry to you, work with similar challenges and opportunities, and help you to almost, build your professional network, but also build that community of analysts within the children's services. So previous cohorts have set up Slack channels, and we do have a dedicated channel for apprentices. Some people like to do more informal things like WhatsApp groups and things like that, but it's just a way to stay connected. And because you will be meeting with these learners quite frequently, minimum of once a month for the workshops, we aim for you guys to really become a network of people on this cohort. So this program, in terms of who it's for, Alice has gone into quite a lot of detail around, the key, maybe some of the key roles. But essentially, it's a data analytics program. So if you are someone who is responsible for working with data frequently, generating reports, doing the analytics, you might want to learn how to code. You might be responsible for, producing some heavy analytics for other departments in the business. This is a good program for you. In terms of the structure and the delivery, it's an 18-month program. And it's taught through a blended learning approach, with different elements that will be able to work, that will be able to suit your individual styles. So in terms of, I'm going to go to the next slide, just to give you an overview of the modules and the units. Oh, sorry. Just to give you an overview of the modules and the units covered. But essentially, this program is an 18-month program, 16 months of teaching and learning, and then you'll have your endpoint assessment at the end. So as you can see, there's 6 units throughout the program, which covers different data analytics topics, techniques, concepts, which will all give you those capabilities to be more effective in your roles as data analysts within the children's services. In terms of how the program is taught, as I was just mentioning, there is a key kind of some key features that we do teach our programs with across all of our Corndel programs. So you'll have one-to-one coaching, and I'll talk to you about that in a bit more detail on the next slide. You'll also have workshops. So there's 16 half-day workshops, which will be booked out in your diary in advance, and they're all delivered online, which will be facilitated by your professional development expert and delivered to you as a cohort. These are practical workshops. They're an opportunity to get involved, get stuck in, and really further embed that learning from a practical perspective. Alongside the workshops, you'll also have online guided learning, which will be the opportunity to learn new concepts, understand a bit about the data techniques and tools, which will be a textbook on our learning management platform. We've got a really interactive learning management platform, which will give you that intel when supporting you with building your knowledge around data analytics. And then you'll also have quarterly reviews as well. So every quarter you will meet with your line manager, and you will also meet with your professional development expert, aka coach, and they will help you. They will talk. It will be a 3-way dialogue, not sort of a parents' evening style, but a 3-way dialogue, just talking through your experiences on the program, what's working well, how what's coming up in terms of the course content, and how you can really further embed what you're learning into your day-to-day role. So that is effectively the different in terms of what we these are the different units that we cover on the course. There's 6 units and 41 modules, all covering different key concepts. But we've got that tailoring from the data to insight perspective and the children's services perspective that really enhance this course to really make you understand and conceptualize this within the children's services world. I'm now going to talk to you a bit about the key features in terms of the key elements of the course. Dom, I don't know if you wanted to mention anything around the units or modules. Please feel free to add.
Yeah, so a few things that I'd want to just quickly emphasize. that have been touched on. So Alistair was mentioning that we update the course and we respond to feedback. I helped with the first cohort, and I've been supporting and Alistair with the tailoring since then. And the course that that we deliver to the first cohort is radically different from the one that we would be delivering to you. There's been substantial changes both to the material in our learning and how the tailoring that we've done in the workshops, and the knowledge that we've got within our team of coaches on how to support you best. So that's one aspect. Another aspect is within the workshops, what you'll see is it's a lot of collaborative work. It's a lot of discussion. And so in that respect, it's a great way to network, to learn from each other, and to build up a support group of data analysts across the country. And I think that's wonderful as a way of doing things. The third thing, I guess, if I think about your individual experience of learning, um, uh, you're meeting with a PDE like myself for the 16 months, and in that time, you'll be learning online, and then in your one-to-ones, you'll be discussing about how to incorporate that learning and apply it in your day-to-day role. That might be by thinking about what does this mean in my role? It might be how can I go beyond the information that you've been learning, and what extra information do I need to really make this work in our context? And so that's another way in which it's really personalized. And that when you're thinking about the portfolio that you're building up, that's going to be your work, and it's got to be things that are relevant to your work. So that's a great way of embedding the information, embedding your learning, and making sure that you get something that's useful out of it.
In terms of the one-to-one coaching, that will be you have your very own professional development expert, aka coach, and the benefits of that person is they are one single point of contact. So other apprenticeships you might be familiar with, you might have to you might have a skills tutor, or you might have and then someone who's also delivering the workshops. It's one single point of contact here. So your coach will also be the person likely to facilitate the group workshops, depending on how many coaches are assigned to a cohort. And in addition to this as well, they all have experience and expertise. And I can't zone in or any more or stress any more about their experience and their expertise, because it's absolutely brilliant. It's something we definitely are really proud of here at Corndel. You won't just be working with someone who is a tutor or knows data analytics by theory. These are all people that have worked within professional industries. Different. Some might have experience in local authorities, but everyone has the same experience in the sense that they've all worked in industry. So they will have all probably come across some of the similar challenges that you might have, albeit that it's a different industry. But the benefit is that this person understands what it's like to live as a data analyst and breathe and eat and sleep data analytics at work, which is a real benefit. um, it's a tailored opportunity, it's a tailored experience. So when you think about coaching, it is your own chance to really think about some of the areas that you're keen to develop. And when I say develop, you might have some capabilities that you're really keen to get from this course. It might not be as obvious, it might not be in the course content, but you kind of, let's say you want to learn about specific language or a specific technique, and you want your coach to support you with that. They are really great, they're really supportive, they will be super hands on deck. And if they have any opportunities to provide stretch material to you, they will provide that. So where I'm really passionate about our coaches, as you can probably tell, but that's because they we get a lot of great feedback from learners, saying how much they appreciate working with their coach and how dynamic it's made their experience on these apprenticeship programs. Um, So hopefully you will all get the experience in terms of working with that person individually. The coaching sessions are delivered on a monthly basis at minimum, but they can be really flexible. So again, it's managed by yourself and the coach in terms of when the best time is, and when the best time is to kind of work with you. So we spoke a bit about the workshops. Dom's given a bit of detail. You will have 16 workshops. There'll be half a day, so it's a couple of hours online. And it's again with the rest of your cohort, it's interactive. You'll be covering deep dive activities and exercises and really practicing those practical techniques, but also the benefit of having data to insights or local authorities guest speaker to really conceptualize that knowledge in and throw it back to the children's services as well. And I spoke a bit about the learning management platform, but effectively, whilst you are progressing through the program, you're doing the workshops, you're having your coaching, you're practically applying what you're learning into your day-to-day role. How you will access all new learning and new content will be via our learning management platform. And this is a really easy platform to use. It's super interactive, it's really user friendly. And this is where you'll access, as I said, all new learning around data and the course content. So it's a really interactive platform. You'll be able to get the opportunity to ask test questions, read. There'll be websites to stretch materials and things like that to really help you to embed and understand your learning. Everything is really broken down into bite-sized activities and tasks. And your coach is there. The most important thing is your coach is there to guide you throughout the way. So whilst this is independent learning, and you'll be required to do various different tasks and activities, your coach will be there to support you, to provide you with feedback, and to guide you throughout the journey. So in terms of endpoint assessment is broken up into three components. You'll have a portfolio of projects, you'll have a final project, and then you'll have a professional discussion slash interview, which will be with an external assessor, really talking through your portfolio and how you've what you've done over the course of the program. Dom, do you want to just touch a bit more on the portfolio and give prospective learners a bit of an intel in around what that looks like?
So I suppose what throughout your online learning, there'll be a set of questions relating to what you've just been learning and how that applies in your day-to-day role. And part of that will be, oh, you'll be asked to build a dashboard, or you'll be asked to build a time series forecast. And then write up something on what the challenges were, how your interactions were with stakeholders, and really show your thought process in that. And so your portfolio is a compilation of all of the material that you've written up across the 16 months. And at the same time, just to touch on that, the final project, that's an independent project that you do in the final 2 months, and you'll have prepared that with your PDE in the 16 months, thinking about how can you take what you've learnt and apply it to an extra project that goes a bit beyond what you've been doing so far.
Perfect. Thank you, Dom. So now just touching on the time commitment before I go into the Imperial relationship and how that plays a part in this program. So there is a time commitment involved, and the reason why there is a time commitment involved, and we've got to be transparent with you, is because this program does benefit from government co-investment. So your councils, your local authorities will all be sponsoring you. You won't have to pay for this out of your own pocket, and this program is a £15,000 course. So they will be sponsoring you to do this program and paying for that with the support of government co-investment. As a result of that, the government have been quite specific around who is able to, be eligible for these courses, but also a bit around the time commitment. So that isn't just for this apprenticeship program, it's for any apprenticeship. It could be social work or various different apprenticeships. But they've said that anyone who does this course or any apprenticeship program must dedicate a minimum of 6 hours a week to their learning, to this course. Now, I know that sounds quite a lot, but how we manage it at Corndel is we really break it down into bite-sized manageable chunks over the course of the month and the week, so that you don't have to worry about, how you're splitting your time out. I think it is really important to say that any program you do does require that commitment from you, but we've tried to make it as easy as possible for you to be able to apply this into your role. A lot of it is really about that practical application. So in terms of how we've broken it down, we said about an hour a month, which will be attending your professional development sessions with your coach, which is where you'll have that one-to-one touch point with your professional development expert. And then on average, 4 hours a week, which will be, doing some of that online learning, doing some of the practical tasks that you've been set, and really building your familiarity with some of the tools and techniques that you would be taught on this course. And then we've said about 1 to 2 hours each week, which will be really where you're practically applying, developing your knowledge, and really evidencing that in your learning. So, what do I mean by that? As Dom said, it might be things like doing a report, a dashboard, a visualization. These are the things that you'll be required to do to demonstrate that you are, practically applying what you've learned within your day-to-day role. And that's a really critical part of this program. It's not just about learning the theory, it is going away and applying it. So as you can see, some of that 6 hours is dedicated towards that practical application, which some of the things you probably will be doing already, or you would have learnt to do, which might make your life a bit easier through the use of learning new techniques and developing new capabilities. And then lastly, workshops, which also constitute towards those 6 hours over the course of the time, is those 16 half-day workshops, which will be, as I said, you'll be given those in advance. And that is really an opportunity for you to further embed your learning, practice, and gain some new intel and insight around data analytics. So that is the time commitment. And then I just wanted to talk to you about alongside this program, whilst it is, we've grouped it together as a Corndel and Data to Insights apprenticeship course. This program is actually sponsored by Imperial College. So all of our data analytics programs at Corndel are sponsored by Imperial College. And the reason we've decided to partner up with them is because they are a global leading university. They've got a lot of credibility in the data space, and they've got some really great professors who will be who you will have the opportunity to learn from and hear from. So outside of the coaching and the workshops, you will also be given the opportunity to attend Imperial College masterclasses. Now, this is slightly, it works in conjunction with the apprenticeship program, but this is slightly separate, as I mentioned. This is an additional feature. So the Imperial College professors and keynote speakers will be facilitating various different masterclasses depending on their area of focus is and expertise. And that will be just interesting topics that you can hear about and learn from, and gain some intel. So it's taking you a bit outside of the kind of the day-to-day techniques and tools, and more getting you to think about data analytics as a worldwide concept, and how data in general impacts the general world. So as you can see on the screen here, there's various different topics, from artificial intelligence in the pandemic to being able to use data to fight climate change. Really interesting, really great stuff. And as I said, you could probably Google some of these professors and learn a lot from learn from what they've done in their past, understand what areas they've worked in, and see a bit about their background. They're all really respected in their own field. And as I said, it's a really good opportunity to learn from people outside of the children's services space, but also if you're interested in understanding data generally and how it impacts the world, some really great topics that you can learn from. So the masterclasses, they are 2 hours, and they're about 8 masterclasses in total. Again, you'll be given the dates of when these are, so you can block time out your diary. They are facilitated online. And the professors do like to share their contact details, and do like to be open to LinkedIn invitations to support you really building your professional network as well. So there's a great opportunity there slightly outside of the apprenticeship program. to really get some further development. And then fireside chats, so slightly different to masterclasses, a bit more like a panel style discussion, where we've got keynote speakers, and they're talking about their experience working as a data as a data person. So we've got various different speakers that will be attending those fireside chats, and an opportunity again for you to hear and learn from someone, maybe a day in the life of a chief data officer, and hear from their own journey as they progress through the data industry. So in terms of, I mentioned that this program, taking it back to sort of eligibility, and if you're eligible for this course, I do have to make you aware of the eligibility and suitability. So the government, because this program benefits from government co-investment, you will they do have a criteria around who is eligible for funding in order to be able to go forward with the course. So there are a couple of key things here that they've specified, which would indicate whether you're eligible or not. The first one is around qualifications. So if you have a data qualification at level 4 or above, you wouldn't typically be eligible for this course. The reason is that we need to be able to demonstrate, that there's a need for learning, and that funding effectively is reserved for people who haven't had the experience or exposure to any data analytics. So that's the kind of core rules around previous qualifications. Anything above a level 4, specifically in data analytics or sort of advanced data analytics capabilities, you wouldn't be eligible if you have a qualification at that level or higher. And then this program is designed for people who work at least 50% of their time in England. So if you work outside of England for more than 50%, you probably wouldn't be eligible. And then again, this program is designed for people who work more than 30 hours a week. However, if you work slightly less, please do not let that put you off, because we can probably work with you for you to do the course for a slightly extended period of time, depending on the hours that you work. And then a few around residency. So effectively, you must have lived in the UK or EU or EEA countries for the last 3 years, and have permission to work and live in the UK or EU or EEA countries over the last 3 years. And they will be asking for sort of passports or a residency and right to work documents as well during the enrolment process. And then just lastly, around previous around eligibility and previous qualifications and maths and English requirements. So there's 2 government requirements around maths and English. The first one is that everyone, no matter what apprenticeship program you do, you will be required to do an initial assessment. That is so that we can measure the level that you're operating at, so that we can evaluate, if this course is the best course for you in terms of your aptitude. But it's not to say that you can't go on the program. So it's just giving us an understanding of where you're at in terms of your level, so that we can tailor the program accordingly if needs be, or make an appropriate decision on is this the right course for you. So that's the first government requirement. The second one is around maths and English GCSEs. So again, any apprenticeship program you're on, you will be required to submit maths and English GCSEs at A to C level or the equivalent, in prior to you starting that endpoint assessment. So this one is slightly different. It's not an immediate requirement. You can join the program if you don't have the relevant qualifications. However, when you get to that 16th month, where before you enter the endpoint assessment, you do need to prove that you have these qualifications. In terms of get the different options and the different avenues, we've all got different experiences. So if you do have the qualification, our team will ask you for these. If you do not have the qualification, there is a route for you to do a program, which I'll talk to you about in a second. If you have an international qualification, we will need to check with our translation agency to evaluate if we can translate those certificates as the equivalent. And if not, then there is a different route for you. So if we aren't able to translate these certificates, and you don't have the qualification initially, you would be required to do a Skills for Business program, which works alongside the apprenticeship course. So, as I said, it's not to say that you can't do the program. You can join with everyone else if you don't have the qualification, or we can't accept this as the equivalent, but you will be required to do a Skills for Business program, which effectively is working you through, working you to get towards that GCSE or equivalent qualification. It does run alongside your apprenticeship program, so there is a bit of an additional time. However, we have a dedicated Skills for Business team, which will everyone who enrolls onto this program will be assigned a Skills for Business tutor. They will work with you to give you past papers, exams, tutorials, to really get you to that point where you're able to do this this exam. And they won't rush you. It takes every learner a different period of time. On average, it takes about 3 to 6 months running alongside the apprenticeship for our learners to complete. But you have ample amount of support, and I'm happy to take any questions that may arise at the end. So we do have some feedback from our learners, and again, I'll share these slides, so I'll let you really read that in your own time, just around the different projects that learners have done, but also just some of the feedback we've had from the learners who have joined this course. As you'll be able to see from the microsite, the page, the Learner Hub that you've all inquired about this course from, there's ample amounts of reading and resources that will help you to make an informed decision about whether this course is right for you. But we know from the feedback from our learners that people are really enjoying, which is the most important thing. So in terms of next steps, what happens if you are keen to go forward? So we have started the enrolment process, as we have been running this campaign around this next cohort since just before Christmas. So we've already started enrolling learners. It's an ongoing enrolment, but the deadline will be on the 31st of January. So most of you will have been invited to this call because you've already applied via the online Learner Hub, which is great. So once you've had this call now, you've attended this insight session, we are currently in the process of liaising with the apprenticeship leads to get that relevant information from them to ensure that we can then start your enrolment. So you will look to hear from us over the next couple of, maybe the next week or so, once we've had that information from your HR leads. I've already emailed the apprenticeship leads and the relevant stakeholders anyway. If you are on this call but you haven't applied via the Learner Hub, please do apply via the Learner Hub so that we can get your information and get you enrolled as quickly as possible. And then really key things are, once you do receive that enrolment, you will get an email from someone at the Corndel enrolments team to give you a bit more information around the different components that you have to do. So that initial assessment I mentioned, that is during the enrolment process. You'll also have to do a skill scan activity, which is during that enrolment process. And that skill scan is really crucial because effectively it's us understanding your level of capabilities around data analytics, to understand, again, if you have the relevant need for learning. So when it comes to doing that skill scan, please take your time to think about, maybe don't overinflate your answers at times, just so that we can really understand that there's a need for learning, because that can impact your eligibility for the course. But this will all be stated in an email around when you get the enrolment, and then the program will start on the I think we decided on the 16th of March. So comms will be going out around, the first workshop and things like that during that enrolment process. I will share the presentation and also the recording as well, so you can feel free to watch rewatch the recording. Again, if you've got any more questions, please just feel free to reach out to us as a team, and we'll also share next steps in terms of enrolments and things, which will happen quite shortly. I guess if you do know anyone that is interested, or anyone that might benefit from this course, please do feel free to share this information, share the slide decks. But yes, thank you all for your time. Really appreciate it. And hope you all have a happy Friday.